Okay, well, welcome everybody to the final morning, the SRB028. We only have some general discussion and adoption of the meeting report left. The informational session, I think, went really well yesterday, and I'll pass the chair in a moment, maybe to give everybody online a little bit of a recap of types of things that discussed and utility of that session moving forward to meetings. And then with that said, we have Mike online remotely this morning because he's not feeling well. But otherwise, I see we have Pete and Anne-Marie and Courtney all online as well. And so with that said, I will pass to you, Chair.
Great, thank you, Dave. So I think we can start here. Shall we start with a recap maybe of yesterday? So yesterday we had a really great, I think, far-ranging discussion, and thanks to Joseph for organizing that, a list of topics there that helped. We talked about a number of things, really a lot of it focused on the changes in weighted age. Those seem so prevalent. So we discussed the evidence for them, how we know that those changes are real, and then different approaches to understand those changes. A lot of that focused on working with otoliths, and I think a number of people noted past experience with otolith analysis, whether that's microchemistry or increment analysis, that didn't seem to pan out. And I at least, I can't speak for the whole SRB, but I think that might be worth revisiting with other collaborators or other methods. Sounds like it's been a few years since that was investigated. In particular, the microchemistry is likely to help us understand origins and movements, particularly at the larger scales from, for example, the Eastern Bering Sea to Gulf of Alaska. It seems likely that there's a difference in signature there at the core of the otolith that might be used to where each individual settled. The other avenue that seems promising with regard to otoliths is growth increment analysis. There was some discussion about earlier problems noted in terms of whether otolith growth was proportional to age or the size of the fish. There may be some newer methods that allow you to get around that. But there's not strict proportionality. Many of these might not pan out, right? But I think they're worth revisiting here, and because weighted age is really driving the bus with regard to changes in productivity. So understanding that and being better able to predict it would be a tremendous benefit of relevance. We also spoke about respirometry and understanding the cost side of the equation. So as temperatures, well, as weight of age goes down, it could be from an increase in metabolic costs or decrease in energy consumed. Potentially also a change in where that energy is going in terms of maturity and gonad development versus somatic growth. But we noted that there is no respirometry that's been done for Pacific halibut. We don't know what the function of routine metabolic rate as a function of growth temperature looks like. We don't know what aerobic scope looks like, the difference between maximum metabolic rate and metabolic stage. And that these are potentially valuable research directions here. Joseph noted that there have been some past attempts to seek outside funding for this kind of work that were not successful. And this is certainly a harsh granting environment to be submitting new proposals to, given the collapse of federal funding here in the U.S. That's something to definitely consider getting into. I'll stop there. Any other topics that you want to raise? We had a lot of discussion about AI, Oh, sorry, Mike, go ahead.
The one other one I would bring up is trying to do or go back and look at the market capture data to look at changes in growth over time. That there's that data, those data sets might be able to provide some interesting perspective on those changes, despite some of the challenges we discussed in the interpretation of what those data actually represent.
That's right. Thanks, Mike. We talked about how the market capture data for a long time, apparently when there was a discrepancy indicating negative growth, the lengths were adjusted to make that go away, which is problematic for analysis. But Mike brought up the potential to use fish that were at large for at least a minimum amount of time where you would not expect to see measurement error result in an apparently negative size change. So worth at least probably running the filters to see how much data is left after you reject the ones that don't have enough expected growth.
We also had mentioned the potential to do stabilized work from archive global.
That's right.
New topic for us.
Yep. Yeah, we talked about trying to reconstruct diets, or at least trophic position of halibut historically based on stabilized stope analysis of nitrogen bound in the otolith. So there's some work that's been done on that. There are new techniques available there. And we talked about, well, we continued some of our discussion about the AI-based aging and potential for that in the future. These models are going, and whether these models might also be potentially externally fundable. And get external funding to continue that research, which does in the U.S. seem to be a funding priority for a lot of federal agencies, AI-based approaches. Anything else that I'm missing we should bring up here?
Perhaps let me add, and I think it was Mike's suggestion to emphasize the need to come up with conceptual models of life history processes before we decide to tackle a particular research question. So that was the point of this post.
Yeah, that's a good point. Mike made the excellent point that conceptual models of different hypotheses about life history change be a useful approach before trying to.
Another novel thing that came up was this concept of doing lifetime consumption by contaminant loads.
Right.
Something we haven't thought of.
Right. So you can, based on using contaminants like mercury mass balance, and if you know the levels of mercury or other contaminants in food, and you know the essentially the depuration rate, how fast the body eliminates it, can calculate lifetime consumption based on the difference between mercury content in the body of the consumer and the body of the food. This was brought up in the context of trying to understand whether periods of lower weighted age result from declines in consumption, energy in, or increases in energy out. Metabolism. I think it was Claude brought up the idea of essentially using some existing samples from Alaska that have been run for governance as part of the state program. I want to clarify, this is not about toxicology. It's not, concern about levels of mercury in halibut, simply using trace levels to track diet. Anything else on with the votes?
Good session.
Yeah, sure.
So,
Okay.
just moving forward then in terms of future meetings, do you think a half day is adequate? Matt, do you think?
I do, and I like the idea of putting that somewhere in the middle of the meeting. In the past, I think we'll try to do that at the end of the meeting, which is really not as ideal for having time to continue discussions. Shall we do that? Okay, shall we move on to the report?
Pete's got his hand up, sorry.
Okay, great. Go ahead, Pete.
Oh, great. Yeah. Thank you. Thanks, Olaf, for that summary. I had a quick question. I mean, certainly the SRB and Secretariat have the latitude to have as many discussions, public or private, as they want. I guess my question here is, could I get a comment on the benefit of excluding the scientific advisors from these discussions? The role I'm in is to be a conduit for you to discuss some of the research that is going on to the commissioners. And I would just like a comment on that, and whether in future meetings that's going to remain the case, that you exclude the scientific advisors from these discussions.
Thank you for bringing that up, Pete. I'm sure the intent was not to exclude the advisors, because there's, as you say, no benefit to that. I think it was simply about the hybrid online, in-person difficulty when you have more people talking at once in the room. I think there's certainly no reason to not leave the what is it, Adobe connection on here. It just might make it harder for the folks online to contribute when there's multiple conversations happening kind of together in the room.
Yeah, and if I can just add to that as well, a couple of things. Extremely welcome to come and join, not only in person but online. In the past, this particular session is also broken up into smaller groups and gone to people's offices to have those general discussions. I know Kim Scribner in particular was very keen to have that kind of direct interaction with individuals within the Secretariat. So the short answer, as the chair has just said, that there's no intention to exclude. It just becomes very, very challenging doing it remotely if we do start to move around. So I would suggest that next year, if you can make it in, that's fantastic. That'll really facilitate ease of access to those discussions. And then if you can't make it in, and noting that it is a hybrid meeting, just let us know if there are particular topics you want to engage in, and then we'll try and get a Teams meeting set up so that you can join those particular breakout groups if we do break up into smaller team discussions as well.
Great. Thanks, Dave and Olaf. I really appreciate that comment, that there was no intention there. So yeah, in the future, I think both Anne Marie and I can reach out to you and discuss what we would like to be involved in. Thank you.
Cheers. Great. Thanks, Pete.
I just want to echo Pete's comments in terms of really appreciate the intention not to exclude us. And just picking up on Dave's last question, comment in terms of if there's specific topics that we'd like to be involved with, do you have a list of the topics in advance that we could take a look at and figure out if there are ones that we are more interested in than others?
Yeah, thanks, Anne Marie. The answer is that we tried to come up with sort of a list of potential topics, but there's nothing specific that would be discussed other than the core work that we're doing and project ideas. I think with that said, I think for the next meeting, maybe we can do that and we can take particular topics, including from the science advisors. If you're keen to target a particular research stream or element of the 5-year plan that we're doing. We could even set up a small session just targeted on that. So I'm just looking around the table, maybe for the next meeting, if we do have specific ideas that we want to discuss offline with the board, we can flag those earlier rather than just doing it live in session. Great,
thank you.
Yeah, I would welcome that, Anne Marie, if you and Pete had particular topics that you think are of special relevance to add those to the agenda and make sure we discuss them.
Great, thanks, Olaf.
Jump into the report. Could I get you just to maximize that? You to walk us through.
Okay, let's go down here. I just lost my spot. Okay, I think ended last time with sorry, we ended with the MSE last time, so I'll start.
Sorry, you may have to just zoom in. So, spring.
Zoom in more.
Yeah. How's that? You can read it, so I'm sure everybody else can in front of me.
Let's see. Yeah, we ended on stock assessment last time, right? With the note about thumbs up to continuing the investigations into state-based modeling. Great. So continuing on then with management strategy evaluation, the SRB noted the paper provided that talked about the program of work for 26 to 27 and the framework there. The SRB requested that the Secretariat investigate via the MSC control rules based on changes to the risk of overfishing. So this was a suggestion that refers to approaches that are used in some other fishery management contexts where there is management specifically to an acceptable risk of overfishing. And that this is beneficial, I think, because it formally acknowledges uncertainty. We don't know exactly where we'll be, but that we can articulate what is an acceptable risk of overfishing and recognize that that probably changes depending on where our biomass is. An acceptable risk of overfishing might be a lot higher when the population is in good shape. It's low, and any possibility of further decline is something that everyone wants to avoid. So this is often called the P-star approach. P-star is just that target risk of overfishing. It's used in the Mid-Atlantic Fishery Management Council. There's a reference here to the original paper.
So we'll bring back just an analysis of that, potential ideas to evaluate.
That sounds great. And I think this is really something where we would defer to the MSAB on the value of this.
Yeah.
But I think it's something that they might want to see as a potential use of the MSC and as their development of harvest control rules.
Yep.
We saw two, right? We saw the one based on absolute biomass and relative biomass. This is just a related approach where the risk of overfishing is the biggest fix.
So September, we'll bring back ideas on what to evaluate, just sort of general ideas on this. Scope out some of the control rules, and then we won't have a MSAT meeting until probably next May, official one.
Okay.
And so then we'll be able to go through that with you, the SRB in September, and then go through it with the MSAT in May, bring it back in June, sort of fine.
That sounds like a good timeline. Yep.
Yeah. One extra thing along those lines is if you do decide you want to go along the route of exploring these kinds of control rules, the shared share it all paper provides a way of doing it that involves having to calculate a double integral for each each time you're doing stuff, and there's a computationally easier way to do it that we use in the Mid-Atlantic, that if you basically calculate the distribution of the catch limit, you can just take the percentiles of that associated with your probability of overfishing.
Okay.
And it makes the calculations go quite a bit easier, in my opinion. So, but happy to talk about that more if it's the route you decide to pursue.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. I'll reach out to you when I get down the road a little bit.
Great. Thanks, Mike. That is our note 23 here. So good to have that. We can move on to 24 then. So we recall this recommendation that recruitment projections incorporate a random walk and autocorrelation. And we noted the update provided here and requested an analysis of projecting recruitment via projections in environmental drivers linked to. In this case, the PDO is one that's in there already, but that doesn't have to be the only one. This might help ensure that the projected recruitments don't rapidly revert to the mean. And we recognize that this is not an issue with the stock assessment projections, because those recruitments don't come into play in the short term. But for the MSE, this could be potentially useful. We also talked about how this chasing environment recruitment relationships can certainly be a rabbit hole. So there's undoubtedly going to be a good stopping point in terms of investigating a reasonable set of environmental drivers that are available and have projections for them and are likely related to recruitment, and not throwing the kitchen sink at this.
Yeah, just to add into that too, the way I like to think of MICs is around sort of plausible hypotheses and trying to represent those hypotheses. And I always find random walks a little bit difficult to think about in that same context. And the other part is interpreting the output of simulated random walks I find particularly difficult, because you're going to have some cases that drift really low, some that drift really high, and most of them will stay somewhere in the middle. And if your different hypotheses will actually lead to drifting lower, drifting high, I think it's more important to try and understand those specific behaviors than kind of on average what would happen across all the different realizations of a random walk.
Yeah, I agree. Thanks for that, Mike.
So our comment 25 here is in response to the request from the MSAB to clarify our comment from SRB028, recommending performance indicators that represent metrics directly observable to stakeholders. So we're just clarifying here that the intent was to have a variety of indicators that might be more relevant to stakeholders and more interpretable by them than things like weight per unit effort. So we're not proposing that these be used as management objectives, which seem to be the point of confusion there. Just that these indicators could help stakeholders interpret what changes they're likely to see based on different MSC runs. That said, the MSAB certainly is better positioned than the SRB to understand, to decide what indicators have value for stakeholders. And if spatial indicators are contentious, as they sounds like they are, then that's fine.
Yeah, this is perfect. And I'll bring this up to the MSAB. I think we'll go from there. I think it's great.
Thanks for putting the reference in there.
It's easy. But everything's free.
Fishery dependent data we didn't cover. Just designs, it's brief this year because we on the big block this time.
Olaf, can I add one more thing before we move on?
Yeah.
So Olaf and I had a little bit of discussion when we were writing up our recommendations yesterday about the depletion reference points and kind of how that might work a bit more within the existing control rule. And so we didn't put a recommendation in there on this, but we did want to at least float the idea by you guys that given the way the current dynamic B0 reference points are done and the way the assessment is done, it seems really unlikely that you're ever going to trigger the descending limb of your harvest control rule. In order for that to happen, either catch would have to be a lot higher than what was desired, which seems unlikely, or you'd have to have a major change in stock assessment framework that suggests that the level of fishing historically has been much different than what the current assessment thinks it is. And so given those ideas, thinking about the ramp in the harvest control rule just purely relative to a depletion reference point might simplify things, instead of having it as kind of relative to the dynamic B0. Because that way you don't end up with all the problems you get of trying to figure out how to merge two separate control rules.
Yeah. That's a great comment, Mike. I really appreciate that. And those are the sorts of comments that help us move forward. Appreciate it. Would it be worthwhile to maybe make a note on that in the report?
Yep.
I think it would, and then I could draw on that note to bring that to the commission and the MSAB as this develops. You saw this was a topic of interest that's noted by the science advisors.
Yeah. In terms of logistics, I think we could probably do that later rather than
As long as we do it in session.
do it in session.
Yeah, we're adopting the report now.
Oh, we are.
Okay. Okay. So we can try to.
Even something as simple as the SRB noted that considering a single control rule based on absolute spawning biomass maybe wrote too many paragraphs in a report last week. You can say the very common phrase, the ramp.
That's it. Mike, can you see the new text that I've added here?
Yes, that looks good to me. Given I'm new to the process, I'm not sure if using recommended here is too strong of a word at this point, or just want to get folks' thoughts on that.
I think recommended might be the right thing.
Yeah.
Elevated to the commission and the other bodies, whereas requested would be if you just want a nature investor Secretariat to investigate it, I would use request, but I think you're.
I think we do, we are suggesting that there should be some more investigation of how HCRs based on absolute biomass perform.
And that's what this will do.
Exactly.
But
Okay,
it
great.
also elevates it to, hey, look, we're saying this. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just
No,
want it to be clear that we're not saying move ahead, adopt this, reject the relative biomass one. It's more check out whether control rules based just on absolute biomass perform better, because the ones based on relative biomass just never get triggered in PNC.
How about then phrasing it, the SRB recommended investigations that be, so that it's really clear. It's work to be done. Yep.
Yep, that looks good to me.
Okay. Move on to the FIST. So recommendation 28 here is simply noting the 2027 base block design that was presented yesterday. Great to be back in that situation. Yeah, since there was only that design presented, I'm not sure we didn't have any recommendations or requests for specific to design. If there's something that you'd like us to weigh in on here.
No, nothing specific. It was just if you, in reviewing the presentation, if there was something that sort of caught your eyes, if you asked us for investigation, but otherwise, no, it's just noting we're moving to the basic cost.
And the thing that
One-
did catch our eye is 4B, and the 4B ends up for logistics reasons not getting sampled. That those CVs are going to be higher than projected.
Yeah, and sorry, Mike, just before I pass it to you through the chair, we did get some additional information yesterday. I know Ray was wondering if there'd been any more. And the vessel and vessel captain who had expressed interest in doing work out at ADAC in 4B has come back indicating that fuel prices are to the point where it's just won't be viable for him or for us to do it, given that his bid would have to be extremely high. So I think unfortunately that means we won't be sampling it this year. So we'll just have to factor that into the base block next year. Sorry, Mike, through.
Oh, so it seems like every peer review panel I'm on lately, we put in a recommendation that talks about how important fishery independent information is for management, in particular for groups like the commission or the bodies that are overseeing kind of the distribution of financial resources towards different activities. And so I don't know if that's already been stated ad nauseum and isn't needed here, or if it would be valuable if the SRB made a statement to that effect.
You align, Ray?
I can speak for Ray. I don't think it would hurt to put a statement in there noting the value of the survey to the commission, and perhaps also noting that given that it doesn't look like we're going to get 4B, that's probably going to lead to additional needs in the near future to catch up, as well as the concept that we raised, which is that because of the smaller designs in the last couple of years, we won't be sort of fully caught up to with just a single year of public base block design, that it'll actually take the next 2 to 3 years to get fully caught up. I don't know exactly how to say that concisely, but just to help the commission understand that we're in a much better place. It's not going to be exactly what we're hoping for this year, and it is going to take sticking with the base block design for a couple of more years before we really start to get the full benefit of the base block design itself.
Yeah. Uh,
We reference in the discussion, we referenced the CVs and how the CVs would be expected to continue to decrease for the next couple of years. As if the commission commits to sticking. Ray says that's okay. He was having trouble with mic access. He's only listening.
Subregions.
Well, Ray presented those both at the regulatory area level and the regional level.
Regulatory.
Regulatory areas. It's very important. No.
Okay, let's take a look at those three statements that I added there to make sure that captures.
Looks good to me.
Ray, I don't know if you can access your microphone yet, but
I can now, thank you.
okay, great. Any thoughts about this?
Yeah, they look good. I wondered if Ian's okay with this, but as it stands, but the lack of sampling in 4B will also result in no biological data for that particular biological region for the assessment. So it's not just bias in the aggregate, but a lack of biological information to inform the assessment. But if Ian wants
Good
that,
point, Ray.
added,
Thanks.
Great.
I always forget that until I go to run the HCOMPs and realize there aren't any.
Region is the correct word there.
Biological regions.
Biological region. Thanks. You'd think after all these years, I would know biological region from regulatory area. I need one of those maps for my office. I guess.
Same 4B.
4B is the one place where they map exactly.
Okay, we did not see updates to space-time modeling, so that's good. We have a note here noting improvements in aging accuracy from the AI-based otolith analysis. And then 34 here, I think, is worth some discussion. So I asked some questions yesterday about how we've seen presentations on the AI-based aging as well as the epigenetic aging, both of which I think are super exciting. And trying to just get straight in my own head, at least, how these different approaches fit in with the traditional otolith-based aging, and how that all feeds into the stock assessment. I think it would be useful for us at least to see some sort of a table. And I realize that, a formal quantitative cost benefit analysis is we're probably not at that stage yet, because these methods are developing quickly enough. As Joseph was saying, the costs are still changing rapidly. But something where we, kind of lay out the different approaches to aging, and I don't know what exactly the rows will be, and maybe we can discuss that. But what is the use case for AI-based aging compared to the epigenetic aging? Epigenetic aging has the distinct benefit of being able to be done on live fish that you can then release and watch their behavior, not so much for the otoliths. And so, that sort of thing there, where I'm sure this is very clear to you guys how it all fits together, but it would be useful, I think, for at least for the SRB and possibly for the commission to see, hey, this is why we're doing this. And in the future, this is where we think we might get. I also think that it will be valuable to have some indication, maybe not stopping points, but decision points in terms of, what we'd be looking for to tell you, like, oh yeah, we need to like triple down on this, write some proposals, get more resources, or boy, we're kind of asymptoting in terms of our accuracy for whatever technique, and it's not yet at the level that we need for it to be a reliable input to stock assessment. So we're gonna shelve this with a note to look at it again in a year, 2 years, when the next round of models are available. See how it's going. But what is that level of accuracy that makes it ready for prime time as an input to the stock assessment? So those are the sort of things we'd like to encourage you all to get together and grapple with.
I would be interested in hearing a little bit more. So your, like in terms of costs, are you interested more in kind of costs that factor in the development cost, or costs that how we see it if the metrics kind of assess as viable moving forward, how much it would cost per outlet?
I think those are great separate rows there. So development costs and operational costs, and you could have those be expressed in terms of personnel time and in terms of dollars. And at this point, all you can say is high, medium, and low. And that's what you can say at this point.
So I think that it's very difficult to assess kind of development cost, because it kind of happens here and there, but maybe it's more viable in terms of just accuracy, and try to figure out if we move from now on with each one otolith at a time, this would be cost. So just to note that kind of those two are very different. The difficulty of assessing which might be very
different. Yeah. And I think it'd be useful to have a column for the traditional bake and break aging as well, because that facilitates comparison. Presumably that one is much easier to estimate costs.
And I will note that we do hope to kind of bring you an update on the for my end of the AI using the new images with the new technique that we're planning to, but that might be not necessary. But I'm just exactly. I'm just to not to raise the expectations that it may figure out. I think, but maybe we'll provide some sort of input where it's going.
Sounds great.
Would you be interested in also in having an estimate of timelines? When this different methods would be, past the developmental stage, and when they could start acting?
That's a great idea, and I'm just making sure.
Obviously those are going to be approximate. And that, I would hate to put, actual figures, but maybe the same way as with costs and easiness of getting to the final point. Maybe we could do something like short, medium, long term.
So maybe on the cost, we can also add the possibly splitting between the development versus production. Just a moment.
Great, sorry, I'm trying to listen and write at the same time. Did I get all that down there?
Yeah, I think that looks good.
Okay, great. Other business, SRB 29. It's from the 22nd to 24th of September. Hybrid format? Can you-
Same again.
Yeah, the same again, I got you. Yeah, same.
So for that, we have, because we do only have a small meeting space, with secretariat and science advisors are very welcome, and then everybody else online. So sometimes we'll have students join us, other interested parties. Everybody's welcome to join. Just keep it for the board, secretariat, and science advisors.
Sense. Anything else?
One question. Is there something that welcomes the new SRB members?
Great idea, Andre.
You start writing that in that small cover. It's probably right after paragraph 1.
Right here.
Yeah, so you just make it a new.
Science or sciences, Mike?
Singular.
There we go. Dave, did I get Joanna's spelling right?
Yes. I'll double check, just make sure it's 1 and 2.
Professor. University. Thanks, Anne Marie. I appreciate that. All right, move to adopt. I'm good with you, Mike.
Yep. Good for me.
Well, thank you all for a great session. Very inspiring. I always leave the SRB meetings feeling really excited, which I know is not the goal, but it's a happy side effect.
Yeah, I agree. This has been great. And so It's been really exciting to learn about all the work you guys have been doing, and I've definitely read a lot about halibut research and halibut commission in the past, and so it's cool to get a more inside view on it. So thanks for the opportunity.
Yeah, thank you, Mike.
Very much.
Hope you feel better, Mike. See you in September.
Yeah, thank you. Hope everybody else has a great rest of their day.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Dave.